Hello and welcome to Daniel Weekly number 34, May 27, 9:22 in the morning. It's a bright and fine day here in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm really gonna make an effort now to keep my episodes below 20 minutes, within 20 minutes, so I'm gonna just basically stop talking at 20 minutes and save the rest for the next week instead, so that they don't just drag on forever like they seem to be doing otherwise. So 20-minute max starting now. Oh sorry, already lost 40 seconds. I'm going to the HTTP workshop in Münster, Germany this summer in July. See you there, those of you who are going. That's a workshop for discussions about HTTP and what to do after HTTP 2 and how HTTP 2 is going, and pretty much several days talking HTTP nerdy details. Lovely. We're having a foss-sthlm meetup next week here in Stockholm at Spotify's facilities in central Stockholm. That is sold out, or at least fully booked, so there's a waiting list now. Join that. We're still discussing exactly what we're supposed to be talking about during that meetup. I've suggested a couple of things myself, and there are a couple of other guys who have brought their ideas of what they want to say and talk about. So join that, add your suggestions, and it'll be fun. There's also going to be a snacks meetup next week for more like having a beer and talking nerdy stuff among friends in Stockholm. So if you're in Stockholm and you haven't heard about it, read up and join us. For the rest of this episode, we're talking curl, we're talking HTTP 2. Or should we call it H2, just shorten nicely? I think so. H2 is much easier to pronounce. I'm getting a bit annoyed by saying HTTP 2 all the time because it's such a mouthful. Anyway, back, curl HTTP 2. So curl then, I did, I think it was yesterday morning, right? I posted my analysis or report about the curl user poll 2015. So I asked our users or our community a lot of questions about how they use curl, what they want from curl, what they don't want in curl, and so on. And out of those 1,475 answers, I would say that we got a lot of good feedback, a lot of suggestions. I mean, the plain clear text fields where I asked what do you want us to work on next, and we got hundreds of good responses there, and we also got a good overview. Like, for example, it turns out that, no surprise, HTTP and HTTPS are the primary protocols that curl supports. Basically everyone uses HTTP or HTTPS, like over 95%. And all the other protocols are much less used. I think we count up to 21 different protocols in total in curl, if we count all those SSL versions as separate ones. But really HTTP and HTTPS, they're the really primary ones, and then follows the FTP and FTPS and SFTP. So there are those are the 5 primary protocols. No surprises really. But what was possibly interesting is that more people claim to be using Gopher than, for example, are using POP3 or RTSP or RTMP. Which, well, I don't know. A lot of those answers, I sometimes question if users are actually being honest, or if that's what they want us to believe or what they think they are doing. Because, I mean, okay, 33 users out of 1,400 or 1,500 might be using Gopher. That might be entirely correct. But I also, in another question, I asked how many users are using HTTP pipelining. And HTTP pipelining is really, you have to enable it specifically in curl, and it's only for the multi-interface. And pipelining is kind of an area that is full of pitfalls and bad voodoo, and we don't get much many bug reports about pipelining, and I would expect that if, in this case, I believe roughly 19% of all the respondents said that they were using HTTP pipelining, and I really question that number. There were also a rather high number that who say that they use HTTP2 in curl, which is fun, but I'm also a bit curious. Are we really that many that are using HTTP2 with curl already? Well, there are much more to read out from those answers, and I posted my report. It's like 30 pages in a PDF about comparisons with the last year with this year, and a lot of details what people have answered. I think I'll have reason to go back to that and read it again to make sure that I kind of really absorb what people have said. But then, of course, it's only a survey. We have to keep things going the normal way too. We're already discussing now on the mailing list about things to do regarding those comments. Like, several people at least brings up documentation, and that we have this wall of options in many cases, or just a lot of documentation, but hard to penetrate, hard to know where to start and what to get going. If you're like a newcomer, if you don't know what to do, it is hard. We have a lot of reference documentation, but we don't have that much good entry documentation and where to start. And even that also goes for, like, if you want to contribute to the project, where do you start? Where are those simple steps to which simple bugs do we want to fix? What can a newcomer do? So yeah, we have work to do. And of course, my favorite comment of all comments in the entire poll, then I also even mentioned named my report after it, is that in the question, what do you think we should remove from the project, which is a kind of the question is a kind of a fun, because of course we won't just easily remove anything just because someone thinks we should remove it. But I asked the question anyway because I wanted to hear what people think. What do we do that they think is completely useless? And one of the best answers there was the retina burning blue on your web page. Yep. Retina burning. I wouldn't have expected blue to be retina burning, but apparently it is. Anyway, we're discussing that too, and not the blue perhaps, but the website in general, and the documentation, and whatever. So I'm hoping to move everything forward. Who knows where we end up with all those things. We are 3 weeks from release, exactly, since we release on Wednesdays. So we're closing in. A lot of bugs still to do, and I won't do much more HTTP2 features because I think the features stuff is already in. Now we need to test more HTTP stuff. But the multiplexing is going into the release, so that's good at least. The awesome, I don't know about that, but the bug of the week to mention here on this fancy video is that, and stay with me here now, the tight loop in multi-run single state WAITPROXYCONNECT. Turns out that, we have a lot of options in libcurl, like 200 and whatever, so you can control each transfer with a huge busload of options. And it turns out that some of the options are kind of depending on another option in sometimes rather subtle ways. So it turns out that you can actually switch on HTTP proxy tunneling and at the same time ask for another kind of proxy than HTTP. So I want to have HTTP proxy tunneling, but I want my proxy to be something else. And that turned out to become a really wrong state at some, in one check at least in the code. So it actually turned out to be a more a tight loop. So it became a busy loop at some point in curl. So it would just waste a lot of CPU. I mean, until it could continue, so it was just a stupid state. Fixed now. We did a new coverity run on curl since coverity released a new version, and coverity pointed out, I believe, 9 new flaws or defects, possible defects in curl, and I'm working on fixing them. I think I fixed all of them except one so far. We have 2 potential security advisories for the next release. A bit sad, but that's the reality. I'm working with the security team in curl to write up advisories and have the suitable patches for them. We'll see if it really turns out to be 2, but I think so far. Okay, hold on the curl options, and I'll just mention the HTTP2 stuff and then take the curl options for this week. HTTP2 land, which then is basically what I'm going to call H2 instead. So I released H2 Explained 1.12, basically just refreshing the entire document. I think I mentioned it last week. Not that much difference. The Tatsuhiro in the ANG HTTP2 project also kind of said that he actually made me think about this more. He said that he's going to refer to his project as the NGH2 project now instead of NGHTTP2, just because it's so hard to pronounce. So NGH2, and they released, I think they released 2 new versions. Or was it 1? I don't know. I think they're on 1.01 release now. I'm usually tracking their Git anyway, so I'm just running their bleeding edge developer version in my tests. Then I also wrote up a proposal for libcurl, then also for curl really, how to proceed to make HTTP2 default. You see, I can't really switch to H2 because it's stuck in my brain to say HTTP2. H2 by default in curl and libcurl, how to do it. And I want to do it to enable H2 for TLS only by default, and HT an old style 1.1 for clear text HTTP. So to enable that, I need a new option, and I want that to become the default at some point. Because for TLS, there's no waste in trying or asking for H2. I mean, if the server doesn't support it, there's no penalty in any way. But asking for H2 all the time over plain HTTP is kind of a waste in number of bytes and potential round trips or whatever. So that would have a bigger impact to users who wouldn't expect that to happen. I posted a suggestion on the mailing list, no comments yet, but I think I'm going to proceed with that, so that'll probably then become some new option for the next, not this release, but the one following. In H2 multiplexed upload land, I made that work a couple of days ago, last week. So I did several hundred multiplexed uploads over the same single connection, and it works fine. I actually did I uploads to the test server that just echoes back the entire file. So I send the entire file and it gets back, so I can verify that it actually sends and receives the files properly. And I think I did over 600, or I don't remember exactly, uploads, and they all arrived fine, and they all came back fine. So it seems to be working. I haven't optimized that, so there might be things to fine-tune, but the main functionality is there now for multiplexing both upload and downloads, and yeah, that feels good. And since this is going into the next release, I'm hoping that there will be some more users now too that will actually exercise this too. I should really remember to put my phone in airplane mode before I record this, because otherwise I can get these annoying phone calls in the middle of the video and mess everything up because now my timer is wrong and I don't know how long my episode is going to be. Anyway, I was talking to this guy who is doing the Google Summer of Code project, and he intends to use curl to do multiplexing to implement a file system, or to support a file system that speaks HTTP. So hopefully I will get some real world testing of the multiplexing stuff really soon. I'm hoping to put some link somewhere here about more details on that. That's about it. I also, of course, intend to introduce APIs to do both H2 server push and the priorities and dependencies. But since I can't do that in this release anyway, since we're past the feature window, I'm going to polish my suggestions, and I'm going to discuss them on the mailing list and see if there's anyone with opinions, and then I'm going to work on those features in the separate H2 branch going forward. Otherwise, I kind of spent days this week on Firefox bug report 116663 about chunked encoding. That is weird in this case. I haven't been able to reproduce it, I haven't been able to understand it, but I've been reading a lot of Wireshark dumps. I'm probably going to spend some more time on that and see if I can wrap my head around it. Otherwise, I'll put that on hold and go back to implement more H2 stuff in curl. So here's a quick thing for the curl options this week. I'm going to cut down to just mention one option. That is the curl -H, or -- header as it's called. It is used to provide a custom header in an HTTP request. Like if you want to have your own header in the request, you type -H. For example, you can type blah blah : foobar to send that in the request. Really good. And you can use that -H numerous times. You can add a lot of headers. And if you would pick a header that curl would otherwise generate by its own, your own version will replace the one that curl would use. If you, for example, if you would add a host : foobar, that would replace the actual host header that curl would otherwise use, which is a good way if you want to do your own funny requests in some way. And the host header is one of those that typically people change, or you can change the accept header, or you can whatever content type when you're sending a post, and you can whatever. And if you do a -H and a header just host : and no contents on the right side of the colon, that tells curl that you want that header removed from the request. So that way you can actually remove headers that curl would otherwise add by itself. Like if you want to do a request without accept at all, no accept header at all, you use the -H accept : and there won't be any accept header in the request. So you add your own custom headers, you can replace the internal headers, or you can remove internal headers with that same option. You can actually also make an empty header, and then you replace the colon with a semicolon. That's a kind of special magic trick. So you do the -H accept semicolon, and it'll add an accept header without contents on the right side. A weird trick. That semicolon thing is kind of a recent thing, so we had to make it in a magic way. So that's a really powerful option, and you should know that the actual method, the first one in a HTTP request, which usually says get or post or put or whatever, that's not a request. That's not a header, so you can't replace that line with the header. So it's just that's the request line. You can replace that with other options, and we'll discuss the -X another time. But -H, replace, add, remove headers. I'm probably too long this time again. See you next week. Have fun. Bye.